Okay, this is the first half of the 7th grade review for the 9 weeks exam. This is review A. Number 1, a shark swims at a depth of 24.6 meters below sea level. So it starts at negative 24.6. From that depth, the shark rises in the water 7 1/3 meters. So we're going to go up by 7 1/3. Then ascends another 14.3 meters. So once again, ascend is going up 14.3. Then after resting in place for a few seconds, the shark then dives back down 6 5/6 meters. So we're going to go down, decrease, minus 6 5/6 meters. What depth is the shark at now? Okay, so let's just go through and work through this problem. We'll start with these first two, negative 24.6 plus 7 1/3. Now, one of these values is a decimal and the other one is a fraction. So we need to either make them both decimals or both fractions. Both decimals is easier, but we have a problem because 7 1/3 is going to come out to 7.3 repeating. So I'm going to make them both fractions. So negative 24 6/10 would be 6 over 10, which we can reduce to 3/5, plus 7 1/3. Well, that is like saying negative 24 and something 15ths plus 7 and something 15ths. 5 times 3 is 15, and 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 5 is 15, and 1 times 5 is 5. Okay, so now we have a negative number plus a positive number. So thinking back to our integer rules, which apply to fractions as well, if we're adding and they're different signs, then we really subtract and take the sign of the larger. So when we subtract, 9/15 minus 5/15 is 4/15. 24 minus 7 is 17. And the larger number, or the number that's further from 0, is negative. So we get negative 17 and 4/15. Now I'm just going to write that up here because we don't have space to write everything. I'll write it here and say negative 17 and 4/15 plus 14.3 minus 6 5/6. Okay, now once again, we have a fraction plus a decimal, and 4/15 does not equal a terminating decimal, so we need to work with both fractions. So, looking at these two numbers, negative 17 and 4/15 plus 14 3/10, they would have a common denominator of 30. 15 times 2 is 30, so 4 times 2 is 8. 10 times 3 is 30, so 3 times 3 is 9. And this problem, we are adding different signs, but the number further from 0, the greater number, when we try to subtract, we'd be saying 8 minus 9. So let's go ahead and borrow negative 17 and 8/30 and say, okay, ignoring that negative, just bring it down and say, okay, drop 1 from 17 to become 16. And we're going to add 1 as a fraction, which would be 30 over 30, to 8 over 30, which is 38 over 30, plus 14 9/30. So when we add these, we actually subtract, and we get negative 2 and 29/30, and it's negative because the sign of the number further from 0 is what we keep. So negative 16 was further from 0, so we kept the negative from it. Okay, so we get negative 2 and 29/30. I'm going to erase this once again due to space to write. we've got negative 2 and 29/30 minus 6 and 5/6. Okay, so we need a common denominator. They're both fractions. We have negative 2 and 29/30, and the 30 we can keep because 6, this denominator 6 will go into 30. And 6 times 5 is 30, so 5 times 5 is 25. And this is the same as saying negative 2 and 29/30 plus, add the opposite, negative 6 and 25/30. We're really adding the same signs, so we add and keep the sign. So we're going to keep a negative. 2 plus 6 is 8. 29/30 plus 25/30 is 54/30. I could go to the side and I could say, what is this 54/30? Well, 30 goes into 54 one time. We get 24 left over. So we get 1 and 24/30. So 54/30 is 1 and 24/30, so that's really negative 9 and 24/30. And of course that will reduce to negative 9. They both divide by 6, so we get 4/5. Answer choice B. It's 9 and 4/5 meters below sea level, and it's a negative. That does take some time to work through a problem like that. In many cases, honestly this one included, because it was multiple choice, you could have probably gone through and worked with decimal values rounded in order to eliminate answer choices. But to be exact, we would have needed to have used a process as such. Number 2, triangle 2 is a scale drawing of triangle 1. We can replace this word scale drawing with is proportional, or this phrase is a scale drawing to proportional to triangle 1, which tells us that any two sides we pick of those two triangles we can set equal to each other in a proportion and solve for a missing side. So we're missing side A, which is the shortest side of triangle 2, and it's in the same position of 7 of triangle 1. We have this angled side, 9 of triangle 1, that's in the same position as this angled side of triangle 2, 22.5. So I'm going to call this short over long on the sides of these triangles. And so the short side of triangle 1 is 7 over the long side of triangle 1 is 9 equal. The short side of triangle 2 is A over the long side of triangle 2 is 22.5. And we're just going to solve this for A. So I'm going to cross multiply. 9 times A is 9A. 7 times 22.5. I'm going to go to my calculator and type that in. And I get 157.5. We want to get rid of 9, so we're going to divide both sides by 9. And we get A is 17.5. And if you look at your answer choices, A was the shortest side of that second triangle, and 17.5 is a little shorter than 20, so that seems to be a reasonable answer. Number 3, this question refers to Joe's produce. It says Y represents the cost in dollars and T is the number of pounds of tomatoes. Which equation correctly identifies the relationship between cost and number of pounds of tomatoes? So we want to find Y we want to know this equation in y equal k times x. And in this case, it tells us y is the cost. We don't know k, and x is actually going to be represented as the variable t. So we could still say y divided by x, but in this case, it's y divided by t, or cost per the number of pounds of tomatoes. So, tomatoes here, it tells you that $18 purchases 5 pounds of tomatoes. So I'm going to divide that, 18 divided by 5, and I get 3.6. And we're looking at that as being dollars, so $3.60. And then I'm just going to write that little equation, y equal k, which is 3.60 times t. And that is answer choice A. Number 4, Troy purchased 6 passes for the county fair for a total of $75.84. Each pass cost the same amount. And we notice there are 6 of them. Which equation represents this cost C in dollars for P passes? Or we could say that's the cost per pass. Well, we know the cost was $75.84 for 6 passes. So we divide that, and we get that the cost is $12.64 each. So we're going to write that equation in the form of y equal k times x, where instead of y, we're dealing with the cost, equal our value for k, our constant of proportionality, is $12.64, and x was represented by the passes. We call that P. So here's our equation, and it matches answer choice A. Number 5, Liam has mixed 2 containers of a sports drink. One container holds 4 3/8 liters of sports drink, and the other holds 7 3/4 liters of sports drink. He wishes to divide the sports drink evenly among himself and 4 friends. How many liters of sports drink should each person receive? Choose all the expressions that represent the correct amount. So he's mixed 2 containers. One of them was 4 3/8, plus the other was 7 3/4. And whatever we get for that, he's dividing it evenly among himself and 4 friends. So when you include himself, he's dividing it between 5 people. So let's start with this first part of adding 4 3/8 and 7 3/4. So 4 3/8 plus 7 3/4 have a common denominator of 8. 4 and 8 both go into 8, so we get 7 6/8. We add those, we get 11 9/8. Well, over here on the side, 8 goes into 9 one time with a remainder of 1 out of 8. So 9/8 is like 1 1/8. So really that's 12 1/8. Okay, now we want to divide that by 5. So I'm going to rewrite that here. Let's write it here. 12 1/8 divided by 5. Okay, so when we're dividing fractions, we want to write on both as fractions. We don't want to leave it as a mixed number, so we can write these both as improper fractions. 8 times 12, we go around the world, is 96, plus 1 is 97 over 8, divided by 5 over 1, which that ends up being 97 over 8 using same opposite switch, times 1 over 5. And we get 97 times 1 is 97, over 8 times 5 is 40. 40 will go into 97 2 times, with a remainder of 17 out of 40. So working with fractions, we get 2 17/40 liters, where we also had 97 over 40 liters. Now, it would not be 12 in something liters or 12 point something liters, but that choice 2.425 could be the same. So I'm going to go to a calculator, and I know that 2 is going to be the same, but I want to see what 17 divided by 40 is in a calculator. Or I could do that as scratch work, but I can use a calculator, so I'm going to do that. And I get that 17 over 40 is 0.425, which is that second choice. Number 6 refers to Ethan's running, the passage above that. And it says, what was Ethan's running rate across the fields in yards per second? Yards per second. So I'm going to take the number of yards and divide by the number of seconds. And I could use any ordered pair that I'm given both of those values in this table. So I'm just going to pick this first ordered pair, but I could have used the second one. And so I'm going to take the yards, which were y, 9, and divide by the time in seconds, s, which was 2. And 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. So I got answer choice D. Okay, number 7. Ronald's dad gave him $20 for mowing the lawn. He used the money to buy a soccer ball for $11.50, and he also bought 2 soft drinks. If Ronald went home with a fourth of the money his dad gave him, how much did each soft drink cost? This would be a multi-step problem, and these multi-step problems can be worked several different ways. There's lots of ways to approach this. So I'm going to start by saying that he went home with a fourth of the money. So that was his change. So he had a fourth of $20. And you might recognize that a fourth of $20 is like saying $20 divided by 4, which is $5. Or you could work it out and say a fourth times 20 over 1. You get 20 over 4, because we're really saying 20 divided by 4, which equals 5. So he had $5 remaining. Okay, so that means that he spent $15. So let's go back here and say, of his $15 that he started with, he subtracted $11.50, and then whatever that amount was, it was divided by 2 for the cost of 1 soft drink. So $15 minus $11.50 is $3.50, and that's divided by 2, because it was the cost of 2 soft drinks, which means that each soft drink is $1.75. Number 8, Clara and Elizabeth decide to set up a fruit punch stand. Clara makes 4 1/4 quarts of fruit punch. Elizabeth makes 3 5/8 quarts of fruit punch. If they combine their fruit punch, how many 3/4 cups of fruit punch will they be able to sell? Select all correct answers. So let's add these 2 fruit punches together. 4 1/4 plus 3 5/8. And then we're going to divide it by 3/4 to see how many times 3/4 will go into that amount. I'm going to pause here just a minute, because I could continue working through these fractions, but if these are terminating decimals, that would make this a much quicker and simpler problem. And if I were to go to my calculator and type in those fractions, I would get decimals that end. So I'm going to use those. So instead of 4 1/4, I'm going to use 4.25. Instead of 3 5/8, I'm going to use 3.625. And then instead of 3/4, I'm going to use 0.75. So I'm just going to go to my calculator and type and find out that 4.25 plus 3.625 is 7.875. And then I'm going to divide that by 0.75. And I get 10.5. Okay, so that tells me that the first answer is correct. 5.25 is not the same. 11 is not the same, though it almost looks that way, but it would be rounded. 10 1/2 is 10.5. Now 21 over 2, we want to check that. 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. So that's the same. And 21 over 4 we would think is not going to work, but we could check it. 21 divided by 4 is 5.25. So that doesn't work. Number 9, Janelle has a 12-ounce can of soft drink. She drinks 3/5 of the soft drink. How many ounces of soft drink are left? Okay, well, let's see. We could do this a couple ways, but let's just find out how much she drinks. She drinks 3/5 of 12 ounces. So 3/5, which we could change to a decimal. It's 0.6 times 12. And when we multiply that, we get 7.2. So that's how much she drinks. So what's left? 12 minus 7.2, which is 4.8 ounces. Number 10 is another proportion problem. It tells us that triangle B is proportional. Scale drawing means proportional to triangle A. So I'm looking for X. X would be the middle length. So I'm going to compare the middle to maybe the shortest side this time. So the middle for triangle A is 8. And the middle for triangle B is X. The short side for triangle A is 6. The short side for triangle B is 15. When we cross multiply, we get 6x equal 8 times 15 is 120. Divide both sides by 6 to get x by itself, and we get that x is 20. Number 11, a copy machine printed 360 copies in 4 minutes. Another copy machine printed copies for 3 minutes at twice the rate of the first copy machine. 3 minutes, twice the rate. How many copies did the second copy machine print? Let's first find the rate. The rate, or the unit rate, is 360 copies per 4 minutes for the first machine. That's 90 copies per minute. The next machine copied at twice the rate. So 2 times 90 is 180 copies per minute. We're dealing with 3 minutes. So 3 times 180 is 540 copies. Number 12. The Student Council of Tupelo Middle School is serving breakfast to teachers for National Teacher Appreciation Day. They have 18 5/8 cups of apple juice and a coffee maker that makes 14 cups of coffee per pot. How many cups of apple juice will be left after serving 11 3/4 cup servings? Well, let's find out how much 11 3/4 cup servings is. So they're going to serve 11 times 3/4. Now, I could work with fractions, but since this is a terminating decimal as a fraction, I'm going to go ahead and change it to a decimal. And 11 times 0.75 is 8.25. So they served 8.25 cups. So let's see what remains. What's left? What remains is 18 5/8, which I'm going to go ahead and change 5/8 to 0.625 minus 8.25. And that's 10.375 that remains, which is going to be a little under 10.5, and it actually is equal to 10 3/8. That's that third choice on part A. So that's what remained. Part B. If each coffee mug holds 1 1/4 cup of coffee, how many whole cups can be obtained from 2 pots of coffee? Well, it makes 14 cups per pot, so 2 times 14 means that it makes 28 cups per pot. And we want to know how many cups, when it's talking about a mug of coffee, it can hold. I don't love that wording because that can be kind of misleading, but I'm going to assume it's asking for mugs. And we're going to say 28 divided by 1 1/4, which is like saying 28 divided by 1.25. And I get 22.4. So it'll hold 22 and then a little more, but it's asking for whole mugs, so it's only going to hold 22. It can't hold 23, that would be too much. It can only hold 22. Number 13, this one's a little bit different. Chris is riding his bike at 10 miles per hour. Which equation below expresses the relationship between the distance Chris is traveling and the time he spends traveling? It tells you that d is distance and t is time traveling at a constant speed. Well, if we think about this, the distance that he travels is going to be the speed that he travels times his number of hours. So the distance is equal to his speed, 10 miles per hour, times his hours, which is t. Answer choice D. Number 13 refers to this passage. It's talking about miles per gallon on highway and city of driving. So on number 14, it says during a whole family trip, approximately 70 and 19/20 gallons of gas were used. The gas tank of the family van holds 16.5 gallons of gas when it's completely full. The average cost of the gas they purchased was $2.79 per gallon. How many tanks of gas did the family use on their trip? Okay, so we have enough information here to do part A. We know that they used this amount of gas total, and their gas tank holds this amount of gas. So we want to know how many times 16.5 gallons will go into 70 and 19/20 gallons. If these will go to terminating decimals, I'd rather do that. I know I'm going to say 70 and 19/20 divide by 16.5. And I'm going to go ahead and change them to terminating decimals because they will go there. 19 divided by 20 in your calculator is 0.95. 1/2 is 0.5. And so we would just then divide. And that comes out to 4.3. Now our answer choices are in fraction form. So 4.3 is 4 3/10 because it's in the tenths place. And that is this first answer choice. Part B, about how much money did the family spend on gas during their trip? Well, we know they used this amount of gas, 70 and 19/20 gallons, and we know that the price was $2.79 per gallon. So we got to multiply that number of gallons by $2.79. So I'm going to change this to a decimal since I can. 70 and 19/20 is 70.95 times 2.79. And when I type that in my calculator, I get this number, 197.9505. Well, I need this in dollars and cents. So $197 would be 2 decimal places. So 0.9, and use that 0 to decide. This is not going to round up, so it's 0.95. $197.95. Number 15. Anthony drove 2/3 of a mile to work, then he drove 1/4 of a mile to a friend's house, then he drove 5/6 of a mile home, and he drives the same path every day, Sunday through Saturday. How many miles will he drive in 1 week? So each day, he drives 2/3 plus 1/4 plus 5/6, and he does this 7 days a week, so we multiply that by 7. So we need to go through and add these numbers. I'm going to get a common denominator. 3, 4, and 6 will all go into 12. So I've got 8/12 plus 3/12 plus 10/12. Add all that up times 7. So we get 21/12. And I'm going to leave it as 21/12 since I'm going to multiply fractions. So I've got 7/1 times 21/12. 7 times 21 is 147. 1 times 12 is 12. I noticed that both of these numbers will divide by 3 because 1 plus 4 plus 7 is 12, which divides by 3. And 1 plus 2 is 3, which divides by 3 from my divisibility rules. And so 147 divided by 3 is 49. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And 49 divided by 4. 4 will go into 49. 12 times with 1/4 left over. So we get 12 1/4 miles. Number 16, a copy machine printed 240 copies in 8 minutes. Another copy machine printed copies for 6 minutes at twice the rate. How many copies did the second copy machine print? Well, the first one was 240 copies in 8 minutes. So that would be 30 copies per minute. The second one is twice the rate. So 2 times 30 is 60 copies per minute. And this went on for 6 minutes. So 60 copies times 6 minutes is 360 copies. So we got 360.